I showed up uninvited to the company anniversary dinner. Evelyn said, "Don't touch the food, just sip champagne." "You didn't pay." I smiled. "They used my company card." I reversed it. Moxie echoed, "Call the lawyer." I dropped a letter on Greg's seat. He opened it, froze. I canceled their retreat. Then 47 missed calls hit my phone. I walked into the Fairmont ballroom like I owned the place, even though I wasn't supposed to be there. White marble floors, a champagne tower glittering under the chandelier, a massive seafood spread with everything from oysters to lobster tail, all of it screaming opulence. All of it charged to my company card. That part, I was invited to. People turned when they saw me. Conversations dipped. Evelyn's laugh died halfway through whatever joke she was telling. Her wine glass paused midair. "Darren," she said, with that tight little smirk she saves for when she's about to draw blood. "This isn't an intern mixer." I kept walking. No smile, no reaction. I knew exactly what this was. I'd seen the charge $3,000, hit my card 3 days earlier. Itemized under client development. Funny, considering not a single client was in sight. I stepped up to the buffet, grabbed a plate, and helped myself to 2 lobster claws. If I was paying, I was eating. Charles avoided eye contact, sipping his champagne like it was the only thing holding his spine up. Evelyn wasn't done, though. "You weren't on the RSVP list," she said, louder this time. A few people nearby shifted, pretending not to listen. "Yeah," I said. "I noticed." She opened her mouth, probably to fire off something else snide, but I beat her to it. "Also noticed a $3,000 charge on the Amex. Weird that I wasn't invited to the party I funded." Evelyn blinked. Charles coughed into his napkin. That got their attention. I didn't stop. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out a small white envelope, and placed it neatly on the white tablecloth next to Evelyn's plate of untouched scallops. "What is this?" she asked, suspicious now. "Cancellation notice," I said. "Executive retreat. The one you booked for the Bahamas? $8,500 refunded." She snatched the envelope like it might explode. Her face went stiff as she read. "You canceled it?" she hissed. "I did," I said, wiping my mouth with one of their linen napkins. "Company funds aren't for personal vacations." "You're unbelievable," she said, standing up halfway, her chair screeching against the floor. People were watching now. I kept my voice calm even. "You used the company card, without authorization, twice." Charles tried to interject. "It was a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "It was a pattern, and it's over." I stood up, tucked the napkin onto my plate, and looked Evelyn square in the eyes. "If you're going to steal from someone," I said quietly, "maybe don't invite the rest of the board to celebrate it." Then I turned and walked out, leaving behind a ballroom full of hushed whispers and champagne that suddenly didn't taste quite so sweet. I got home around 9. My apartment was quiet, just the hum of the fridge and the low glow of the city outside my window. I slipped off my shoes, tossed my keys into the bowl by the door, and sank into the couch without turning on the lights. My phone buzzed once. I ignored it, then again, and again. By the time I picked it up, I had 5 missed calls, 2 from Charles, 3 from Evelyn. No voicemails yet. They were still trying to figure out what to say. I poured myself a glass of water and stared out at the skyline. There was something sharp in my chest, but not pain. Not really. Something closer to relief. The kind that makes you nervous because it feels too good, too fast. 10 minutes passed before the first voicemail came through. Evelyn. Her voice was sharp, controlled, but not calm. "You embarrassed us in front of stakeholders. Do you realize what you've done? You don't just show up and pull stunts like that. This company has an image, Darren. And tonight, you made us look like amateurs." I deleted it. Another one came in right after. Charles this time. He sounded more nervous than angry. "Hey, Darren, just wanted to talk. Maybe we didn't handle the retreat planning the best way, but let's not escalate this, okay? Let's figure this out like professionals." I set the phone down, let it vibrate against the glass coffee table until it stopped. Then came the texts. "Greg, lead investor. Darren, what happened tonight? Evelyn says you made a scene. Let's talk before this spreads. Tina, from the compliance team. Just saw the email about the retreat cancellation. Everything okay? Jay, an old business contact. Getting messages from folks at the dinner. Evelyn's pissed. You all right?" I sat there in the dark, scrolling through message after message, each one a different flavor of panic. Some veiled in concern, others not even trying to hide the judgment. I didn't answer any of them. For the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong. And I wasn't going to beg for clarity from the very people who had turned my company into their private playground. My phone rang again. "Evelyn." I let it go to voicemail. "You really want to tank everything you've built because you felt left out of a dinner?" She snapped. "This is why we didn't loop you in. You make everything personal. This company needs leaders, Darren, not children with vendettas." I pressed delete before she could finish. Another voicemail popped up, a name I didn't recognize. "Mr. Greer? This is Maya Thomas. We met briefly at a startup mixer last year." "I was at the dinner tonight." "Listen, I know this might sound out of line, but good on you. Not everyone has the guts to call that stuff out. If you ever want to grab coffee, I'd love to hear your side of things." That one, I saved. I leaned back and exhaled. My phone was still lighting up every few seconds, a mix of damage control and thinly veiled threats. But none of it touched me. They were spinning out. I wasn't, because for once, I wasn't the one cleaning up someone else's mess. I was the one holding the broom. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a black coffee and a headache that no aspirin could touch. The messages had slowed to a trickle overnight. A few passive-aggressive emails from Evelyn, one vague legal threat from Charles. We should consult counsel before you make unilateral decisions, and some stiff silence from Greg, our lead investor. I opened my laptop. It was time to do what I should have done months ago. I started with the credit card statements. There were 12 months worth of transactions to dig through, each tagged under generic categories like operations, client retention, or the ever-popular miscellaneous. It didn't take long before the pattern emerged. Hotel stays at the Ritz, spa services in Lake Tahoe, a charge for luxury car rentals in Scottsdale, all of it tucked neatly under my name, or rather, my corporate card. I opened my accounting dashboard and cross-referenced dates. On the same day I was out of town giving a talk at an AI conference in Chicago, there was a dinner charge at a private steakhouse in Los Angeles, tagged as client development. That steak dinner cost $1,700. I checked my calendar. There was no client scheduled for that day. No meeting, no proposal, nothing. Just a recurring all-staff meeting that I had missed because I was 3 time zones away. They didn't even bother hiding it. I started pulling everything, exported every transaction, downloaded every statement. The deeper I dug, the more I found. A trail of theft dressed up as corporate efficiency. They used my name like a tool, like a shield, like a signature stamp. Then I remembered something. The old office, before we moved into the downtown high-rise, before things got shiny and performative, we used to back everything up locally. Evelyn insisted on it. In case the cloud ever turns into a thunderstorm, she used to joke. I still had the hard drive. It was in a drawer in my bedroom, buried under notebooks and cables I hadn't touched in a year. I plugged it in. It whirred to life. It took some digging, but there it was. A folder marked admin_temp_backup. Inside, Evelyn's voice memos, Charles's exported email files. I clicked on one at random, a voice memo dated 6 months ago. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking, Evelyn said, her voice casual, breezy. We put the Tahoe charges on Darren's card. He's got enough on his plate, he won't notice. He never checks the statements. Charles replied, chuckling in the background. He's too busy writing code and playing fixer. Let him keep thinking he's the workhorse. We'll keep the show running. Then Evelyn again. Exactly. He's useful, but let's keep him distracted. The second he starts paying attention, we're done. I sat back in my chair, the air sucked out of the room. Useful, distracted, the mule. I opened more files. Emails where Evelyn sent receipts to Charles with notes like, put this under Darren's ledger, or miscellaneous. It again, LOL. One message even said, he's a founder on paper. That's it. I clicked play on one last voice memo. This one was short. He'll never fight back. He doesn't want the conflict. That's why it works. I stared at the screen, my hands cold even though the room was warm. That was it. The confirmation. The quiet contempt behind their smiles. They'd built a system of control based on one simple truth. I didn't like to fight. I preferred fixing things, smoothing the edges, making it work. And they weaponized that. I looked over at Moxie, my home-built AI assistant, sitting dormant on the kitchen counter. Wake up, Moxie, I said. A soft tone chimed. Hello, Darren. I need you to scan this folder. Index voices. Pull every instance of the following terms. Darren, card, charge, ledger, and cover. Tag by speaker and date. Understood, Moxie said. Processing. As she got to work, I pulled out a clean notepad. At the top of the page, I wrote, they think I won't fight, then underlined it twice. But they were about to find out. 3 days later, I invited them over. Evelyn, Charles, and Greg, all of them under the impression that I was finally ready to talk things out. I kept the message vague. Said I wanted to clear the air. Said I'd reflect on my behavior. Said maybe we'd find a way forward. They couldn't get here fast enough. They arrived right on time. Charles brought a bottle of wine. Evelyn wore one of those exaggerated business casual outfits that always made her look like she was either about to file a lawsuit or close a real estate deal. Greg looked tired, more annoyed at having to be involved than anything else. My loft was clean, not cozy, not warm. I didn't want them mistaking this for a reunion. Wow, Charles said as he stepped inside. Nice place. You've done well. Thanks, I said flatly. Have a seat. They settled onto the couch like they owned it. I didn't sit. I stayed standing. On the coffee table in front of them, 3 neat stacks of paper, printed bank statements, audit trails, travel bookings, all under my name, all billed to the company card, all unauthorized. Evelyn glanced at the papers, then looked up at me with a practiced frown. Darren, she said, calm and condescending. We could have handled this internally. You didn't need to make a scene. Charles nodded. It really was just operational miscommunication. We thought we'd cleared it with accounting. You didn't, I said, because I am accounting. Greg looked at the folders. Okay, what exactly is this? Evidence, I said. A full 12-month history of fraudulent spending. The kind that would interest a lawyer or a regulator. Charles scoffed. Darren, come on. You're acting like this was some criminal enterprise. It was travel. It was client dinners. Was it? I asked. Because there's a receipt in there for a 3-night stay in Napa under my name while I was in Toronto, and an invoice for a chartered boat labeled as a strategy session. There's also a $1,000 steakhouse charge on the same day we laid off half the content team. Silence. Evelyn crossed her legs, completely unfazed. So what's your endgame here? You want reimbursement? An apology. I picked up the remote on the table and pointed it at the speaker tucked into the shelf. Moxie, I said, play audio tag. He's too busy to notice. Moxie chimed obediently, and Evelyn's voice filled the room. We put the Tahoe charges on Darren's card. He's got enough on his plate, he won't notice. He never checks the statements. Charles's face went pale. Evelyn's fingers twitched. Moxie continued. He's the mule. He works. We steer. Another clip. He's useful, but dumb. He just wants peace. So we give him peace and take what we need. Charles stood up suddenly. Okay, enough. You're violating privacy laws. You can't just. I can, I said. These were stored on a company backup drive that Evelyn failed to erase when we relocated. It's all admissible. Even better, it's yours. I stepped toward them. No anger in my voice. Just clarity. You lied. You stole. You used my name to cover your indulgence. And now you want to gaslight me into thinking it was just a misunderstanding. Evelyn stood too. This is ridiculous. It's borderline obsessive. You're not thinking straight. Then let's ask Moxie, I said. Moxie, I said again, calm and deliberate. Play tag. He's just the mule. Moxie's voice echoed back. He's just the mule. Let him carry the weight. Greg sat back down slowly. His face had changed. He wasn't defensive anymore. He was calculating, realizing that if even half of what I had laid out was true, this was bad. Lawsuit level bad. Reputation killing bad. You recorded us, Evelyn said, her voice low now. You planned this. No, I said. You planned this. I just stopped playing along. I picked up a folder and handed it to Greg. This is a copy of everything. For your legal team. There's more in the cloud. Moxie's indexed the full archive. Greg didn't say anything. He just took the folder and flipped it open. I walked over to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, letting them sit with the weight of what they built and what I just dismantled. Moxie chimed softly from the corner. Trust breach recorded. Deception index. Maximum. I turned back to them, calm and still. We're not reconciling, I said. This isn't a conversation. This is the moment everything changes. And whether you walk out of here or lawyer up first, that's up to you. No one spoke. And for the first time since I started that company, I felt taller than them. Not in height, not in voice. In truth, the next morning, they tried to beat me to the punch. I woke up to 3 emails and 1 group text, all from Evelyn and Charles. Polite, strategic, and dripping with panic. Evelyn, let's revisit yesterday's discussion. No need for rash decisions. I think we can come to a mutual understanding about the use of resources. Charles, let's get legal in the loop before anything irreversible happens. I really think we're better off resolving this internally. Group text from both. Morning, Darren. We were thinking about a Monday sync to go over the budget and expenses. Just us. Private. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. They'd find out soon enough. At 8 a.m. sharp, I logged into the company dashboard, opened the admin console, and clicked through each of their names. Evelyn, Charles, Greg. Each one had full executive access. Not anymore. One by one, I revoked their permissions. Access to files, gone. Credit cards, frozen. Office entry codes, wiped. They were officially locked out of the system they had abused for over a year. Then I opened a fresh tab and sent a message to the company bank. Subject, fraud review, urgent. Please freeze all joint accounts associated with Greer and Company under the names Evelyn Shore and Charles Mendez. Internal fraud audit in progress. Legal counsel looped in. Documentation to follow. Click. Sent. Moxie, who had been idle beside me, blinked to life. Account access updated. Executive rights revoked. Audit trail secured. I nodded to myself. Thanks, Moxie. She responded. Fraud detected. Perimeter sealed. At 8:13 a.m., Evelyn called. I let it ring. She called again at 8:14. Then Charles. Then Greg. Finally, I picked up at 8:17. Darren? Evelyn snapped. We just got locked out. What the hell is going on? You'll need to contact your lawyer, I said, my voice calm, almost bored. I've submitted the documents to the board. The accounts are frozen. The Amex charges are under review. You can't do this, she said, panic seeping through now. We're founders too. Correction, I said. You were. There was silence on the line. I could hear her breathing, heavy, fast, rattled. This will destroy the company, she hissed. You'll lose everything. We'll lose everything. I stared out the window at the rising sun over the city skyline and said, you already did. You just didn't feel it until now. Then I ended the call. 10 minutes later, Charles texted me in all caps. Darren, this is a hostile move. You're going to regret this. We built this together. I didn't reply. At 8:42, Moxie's voice chimed again. Unauthorized login attempts detected from IP addresses linked to former executives. Access denied. Threat logged. I sipped my coffee. Then I walked over to the big whiteboard I used to map strategy. I erased every name but mine. That afternoon, I met with my lawyer, a no-nonsense litigator named Carla with a voice like gravel and eyes that never blinked. I handed her a drive with everything. She took one look at the audio files and said, this is gold. They won't just lose control. They'll lose credibility. At 6:17 p.m., Moxie chimed one last time that day. Leadership roles updated. Control consolidated. Security protocols restructured. Darren Greer, sole administrator. I stood in the middle of my apartment and let that sink in. No more shadow deals. No more backroom bookings. No more being the mule. Just me, my code, my system, and a company that finally belonged to the person who built it. The shift was instant. Once the access was gone, Once the accounts were sealed and the silence turned real, they moved fast. It started with an email. Subject: a fresh start. From Evelyn, of course. Hi Darren. I've been reflecting on our last few conversations, and I want to sincerely apologize for any misunderstanding. We all made mistakes, but we're still a team, a family. I hope we can reset. With respect, Evelyn. I didn't respond. Within 24 hours, they launched what I could only describe as a coordinated reputation laundering campaign. Charles posted on LinkedIn first. Startups are messy. Leadership is hard. But I'm proud to work with brilliant people through every phase, even the uncomfortable ones. Big transitions coming. Stay tuned. Then Evelyn followed. Transparency is everything. Sometimes that means owning mistakes and being better for it. We're committed to evolving, leading with integrity, and building something meaningful. Greg liked both posts. So did a handful of investors who clearly hadn't seen the files yet. I watched it unfold from my laptop, sipping tea, letting them scramble to control the narrative before it slipped away completely. Later that night, I got an anonymous transfer to my personal account, $1,500 labeled miscellaneous. Refund. 2 hours later, another one came through, $3,250. Then $800. They were trying to pay it back, quietly, without admitting fault, without putting anything in writing. Moxie's voice cut through the silence. Incoming transfers detected. Cross-referencing memo labels. Note: miscellaneous, operational, client gift. Pattern: reputation laundering. Tagging accordingly. I smiled. The next morning, my lawyer Carla called. They're trying to get ahead of the audit, she said. I've seen this before. Pay back a portion, push a statement about reconciliation, and make you look like the unstable one if you push further. Let them, I said. I'm not playing catch-up. Later that afternoon, Evelyn texted me again. You were always the heart of this company. We were wrong not to see that. Let's rebuild. Together. I forwarded it to Carla. Her reply was one word. Laughable. The refunds kept coming, drip by drip. No apology, no accountability, just hush money in pieces. At one point, Charles called and left a voicemail that sounded like it took 3 glasses of wine to record. We made mistakes, Darren, but we're still your people. Come on, man. You can't run a company alone. Let's fix this before it's too late. I didn't even bother deleting it. I filed it into a folder labeled, Too Late. By the end of the week, nearly $8,000 had been returned to my accounts. Not all of it, but enough to show that they were scared. I transferred every cent into a new account under my name only. New bank, new security protocols, completely cut off from any company-related funds. Symbolic separation, actual control. Moxie chimed. All transfers complete. Legacy accounts archived. Independence preserved. Reputation laundering, unsuccessful. And just like that, the line was drawn. They could post, they could refund, they could pretend to play nice. But they weren't coming back, and they knew it, because I wasn't the mule anymore. I was the gatekeeper. By the second week, it was no longer just internal. I started getting messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Former clients, past colleagues, even a few ex-employees. Some polite, some cautious, most of them curious. Hey man, I heard something weird went down. Everything okay? Darren, just a heads up. Evelyn's been reaching out to people in our network, trying to clarify the situation. She's making it sound like you had a breakdown. You might want to say something. Not sure if you remember me. I used to do freelance UX work back in the early days. Just wanted to say, good on you. Not everyone stands up when they're getting played. The ripples were spreading, and fast. I stayed quiet online. No posts, no statements. I didn't need to explain anything. The truth was already moving on its own, behind closed doors, in side chats, on company Slack threads they no longer had access to. Then, one night, a name popped up I hadn't seen in years. Nate Grant. We built our first product prototype together. College basement, 10-cent ramen, energy drinks, and whiteboards. I hadn't heard from him since he left the industry. Nate, hey, heard what happened. Sounds brutal. Also sounds like you're free. Want to grab coffee? I've got an idea. We met the next morning at a little cafe on Fairfax. Nate showed up in a hoodie and jeans, same as always, carrying a sketch pad and a beat-up tablet. Forget machine learning, he said, grinning. This is next-gen data transparency, real-time audit trails, self-healing networks. I've got some backers already lined up, but I need someone who knows how to build it. I didn't hesitate. I'm in. It felt like the beginning of something raw and scrappy and completely ours. Later that day, I changed the locks on the office lease, updated the passcodes, deleted Evelyn and Charles's biometrics from the entry system. Carla helped me file the paperwork to restructure ownership. I dropped their shares to zero with full legal backing, not a single challenge. They couldn't afford one. Back at home, I sat in my office, pulled up the main console, and initiated a security audit, top to bottom. Every password rotated, every access token refreshed, every tool reset. Moxie blinked awake. All legacy permissions terminated. Security updated. Independence initialized. I stood there for a while, staring at the screen, letting that word settle in. Independence, not just from them, from the system, from the version of myself that waited for permission, that gave trust like it was infinite. That guy was gone. In his place, someone building on his own terms, with his own rules, and no one left to take credit for it. Let them whisper. I was already on to the next chapter. A month later, the noise stopped. No more calls. No more refund trickles. No more carefully worded emails offering to collaborate or close the chapter. Just quiet. I'd been waking up early again, not to fix messes or jump into fire drills, but to read, to think, to work. My mornings were slow, my tea steeped properly. My apartment, for once, felt like a home and not a command center. One Friday afternoon, I got a call from Carla. Short update. Charles left the city. Evelyn filed for personal bankruptcy last week. Greg, I asked, laying low, probably cutting ties quietly. He hasn't disputed the asset freeze. Says he's moving on. I thanked her and hung up. No satisfaction, no celebration, just confirmation of what I already felt in my bones. The storm had passed. That night, a courier delivered a plain white envelope. No return address. No name. Just my name printed on the front in stiff block letters. I didn't open it. I set it on the shelf by the door. Let it sit there, unopened. Maybe it was one of them. Maybe it was all of them. An apology, a plea, a threat. Didn't matter. Whatever it was too late. I spent the evening on my balcony. Cool air, quiet skyline. My laptop open in front of me. A new dashboard glowing softly on the screen. The framework for Nate's startup. Clean UI. Secure backend. Transparent architecture. We called it Mirror, not because it reflected data, but because it reflected people. What they did. What they really did. No hiding behind fake reports or doctored numbers. Just accountability. In real time. I clicked through a few modules while Moxie read old voice memos in the background, shuffled like a playlist. Evelyn rambling about bonuses. Charles mocking my work ethic. One or two clips of me, tired, still hopeful, explaining rollout timelines and conference calls no one ever listened to. Moxie adjusted her tone to make them sound like a comedy sketch. I laughed once or twice. Couldn't help it. It felt distant now. Like watching reruns of a show you used to love but outgrew. Same actors. Same scripts. But you? You're not the same anymore. I sipped my tea and stared out at the lights blinking across the city. That familiar ache of effort and exhaustion finally replaced by something steadier. Something cleaner. Peace. Moxie chimed softly one last time before going silent for the night. Archive complete. Deception purged. New project, live. I closed the laptop, sat back, and smiled. Let them keep their letters, their apologies, their rewritten histories. I had the truth. I had the code. And I had silence.